Is a great way for team building as well as exposure for your business. Select the road your business wants to adopt and dispatch a team to remove litter and debris. Participants will receive 2 signs showing their organization's name as well as safety equipment and instructions for cleaning roads. You can help keep Tampa Bay beautiful by adopting your own road today. To learn more, visit hcflgov.net/cleanhc.
Hello, I'm WWE superstar Titus O'Neil, and today I'm coming to you as a neighbor. You owe it to yourself and those you love to get tested now. Get the care you need and protect your family. Hillsborough County is offering free coronavirus testing and no health insurance is needed. It costs you nothing to get tested. Visit hcflgov.net/stay-safe for more information and have a reservation made today. Share this with a neighbor and let's come together as a community and keep fighting to get through this. Together, we will come back stronger. God bless.
You know what I like about my morning commute? It's time to reflect. Ponder those big questions. Who are we? Why are we here? Sometimes you just gotta take those bumps in the road and keep on moving forward.
Dude, you couldn't possibly be any more wrong. Stop the car.
That's deep. Like me. I can respect that.
Dude, it's a pothole. I could report it to Hillsborough County right now as a customer service request. Just choose your service and select the issue. Your browser pinpoints the problem, and you can add any important information and even take a picture. It puts Hillsborough County at your service 24/7.
Well, all right.
Flossing in the morning is a really great way to keep your teeth healthy and start the day. But when you're through, here's what you do. Throw it in the trash, don't flush it. There's a problem lots of people don't know, called sanitary sewer overflow. A condition buried deep in the ground, inside a pipe where bad clouds are found. It's a problem we can all help solve, so throw it in the trash, don't flush it. Baby wipes, bandages, cotton pads, paper towels, dental floss, clog up bad. Medicines, kitty litter, cotton swabs, hair. Throw them in the trash, don't flush it. It just takes a second to do the right thing, so toss it and let's keep our pipes clean. Throw it in the trash, don't flush it. If it's not toilet paper, don't flush it. Even if it says you can, don't flush it. If you're having any doubts, don't flush it. One more time, don't flush it.
Tampa Bay is like no place else.
Wait, you can't recycle the bag. You have to throw it away.
Proper recycling keeps it that way for everyone. Bags tangle in machinery and can bring sorting efforts to a halt.
No bags.
Trash the bags and keep our recycling program moving forward.
No, Mom, look, no plastic bags.
Do your part to keep our recycling bag-free. Trash the tanglers or return them to participating retailers. For more information, visit tampabayrecycles.org.
Flu vaccines are important now more than ever for your family and your community. Hillsborough County leaders, along with local health and safety experts, are urging residents to get their flu vaccines. A flu vaccine this season can help reduce the burden on healthcare systems that are responding to the COVID-19 pandemic and save medical resources for care of COVID-19 patients. Reducing illness and hospitalization from the flu helps keep everyone safer. To prevent the flu and help stop the spread of COVID-19, here are a few tips you should know. Get your flu shot. Practice proper hand washing by using soap and water and wash for at least 20 seconds. Use alcohol-based hand sanitizer if you cannot wash. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Cough and sneeze into a tissue and then throw it away. Clean high-touch surfaces frequently. Some examples include doorknobs, credit and debit cards, cell phones, keyboards and mouse devices, and toilet handles. Wear a face covering when around others or if social distancing isn't possible. Stay home if you're feeling sick. If you have any flu-like symptoms, avoid contact with the public. Avoid sharing personal items and spaces with those close to you, and seek medical care early if you're feeling sick. You can help save lives by reducing the spread of viruses. We encourage you to visit hcflgov.net/staysafe for up-to-date information. Find your adventure here in Hillsborough County. With 25 unique trails, including 2 special ones in Florida State Parks, this year's hiking spree is going to be the best one yet. Register at hcflgov.net/hiking spree to earn this year's medallion. Show us your favorite spot by taking a picture and tagging it #TakeAHikeHC. Happy hiking!
This is a battle we've never faced in my lifetime. I want to tell you about 416 of the most amazing people. Every day I get to see their skill, professionalism, and dedication. Their commitment to protect and improve the health of everyone in Hillsborough County. The last 2 months, they've been on the front line of a battle with a very dangerous enemy, COVID-19. And they've risen to the challenge in the most amazing, heroic way. Everyone has contributed, sacrificing their personal life, which they put on hold. They're making a difference for everyone they help, and every day I get stopped and told just how amazing they are. I'm proud and blessed to work with them, my second family.
Hillsborough County, along with local and federal health experts, are encouraging residents to wear cloth face masks to cover their nose and mouth when in public to help stop the spread of COVID-19. There are not enough surgical face masks for everyone, and available ones should go to healthcare workers and first responders. It's easy to make your own face mask out of common household items. The
coming through, and we are live.
Good evening and welcome to the Comprehensive Plan Amendment public hearing for Thursday, January 28th. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and if we could please have a roll call.
Yes, Madam Chair. Kemp?
Here.
Cohen?
Here.
Myers?
Here.
White?
Here.
Hagan?
Here.
Overman?
Here.
Smith?
Here.
All right, thank you. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Welcome to the Board of County Commissioners Comprehensive Plan Amendment public hearing. The Board of County Commissioners will consider the adoption of CPA 20-16, a proposed amendment to the future land use map of the comprehensive plan. The board will also consider the rezoning of the property that is the subject of the comprehensive plan amendment. I will now request that the Planning Commission staff introduce this evening's agenda.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Tony Garcia, Planning Commission staff. Your presenter this evening representing the Planning Commission on both the plan amendment and the rezoning is Ms. Unica Mills. Ms. Mills?
Good evening, Commissioners. HTV, can you please start my presentation? Good evening, Commissioners. Unica Mills, Planning Commission staff. I am here to present HC CPA 2016. Next slide, please. This is a privately initiated plan amendment that's located within the rural area. It's also located within the East Lake Orient Park Community Planning Area. The site is east of Tampa and southeast of Temple Terrace. Next slide, please. The subject site is located on approximately 191 acres. It is specifically located within the Eureka Springs neighborhood, the urban service area boundary, which is located along the western boundary of the site, here outlined in blue. And we also have to the west Tampa Executive Airport. Along the eastern boundary of the site is Interstate 75, and about a third of a mile to the south is Interstate 4. Next slide, please. Currently, the future land use designation of the site is residential 1. Other future land use designations in the area are in the light purple. We have community mixed use 12 and public quasi-public, which is the Tampa Executive Airport that's located to the west of the site. Next slide, please. The applicant is proposing to change the future land use designation to light industrial planned, which is outlined in black. It's the light gray area. Next slide, please. The current adopted future land use classification would allow for consideration of up to 191 units or 30,000 square feet of non-residential uses subject to commercial locational criteria. With the land use change to light industrial and the subject site would not have the potential for residential uses and could be considered for up to 7 million square feet at the maximum build out. However, the countywide average development for uses within the light industrial plan future land use classification is around 915,000 square feet of non-residential uses. Next slide, please. Development Services noted that water and wastewater facilities are not available to the site. Tampa Executive Airport noted a preference of having non-residential use adjacent to their facility for compatibility purposes. Both the Department of Health and Environmental Protection Commission noted that because the site has a presence of wetlands, that further review would be required and done at the rezoning stage for the site. Next slide, please. The light industrial plan future land use classification was found consistent on the basis of policy 16.2 and 16.3 of the future land use element. which speaks to using site planning techniques to input development with adjacent land uses. Additionally, the proposed future land use class designation was found consistent on the basis of policy 24.2 of the future land use element, which speaks to allowing commercial uses at intensities above neighborhood serving commercial scale at locations with direct or adequate access to interstate connectors. Next slide, please. Finally, the Planning Commission found Hillsborough County CPA 2016 consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the future Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County and recommends that the finding be forwarded to the Board of County Commissioners. This concludes my presentations, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we'll hear from the applicant. There's 3 minutes per each applicant representative.
Good afternoon or good evening, Commissioners. This is David Singer, representing the applicant. My address is 101 East Kennedy, Suite 2100 here in Tampa. I'm going to remove my mask. I'm appearing from the conference room at Stantec. Along with me is the applicant, Brad Olshansky. Adam Carnegie from Stantec as well is here. We are socially distanced. And we are safe. I'm going to share my screen and walk you through the site and the land use proposed amendment. But I think it's important to understand we're going to do 2 hearings tonight, one future land use, one zoning. There's going to be some similarities between the two. We're going to discuss the site itself here in some detail during this part of the presentation. I will not or at least try not to be repetitive when we get to the zoning piece of the presentation. So if you see on your screen outlined in blue, this is a 191-acre site. Towards the bottom part of the site, towards the south part, is a 1.5-mile professionally designed performance circuit. This is not a racetrack. There is no head-to-head racing. That is a condition of the PD. Overall, what this project is an auto enthusiast community. Up to 350 private garages of various sizes. There's a multi-purpose building that you can see in blue that can host events, classrooms, training, some vehicle storage. There's a vehicle dynamics pad, and there's an off-road experience on the north of the site. And you can see shaded in white by white dots up in the northern part of the site is the off-road experience. But one thing to note about this site is that piece is actually an old county landfill. And there are some issues with residential compatibility when you have an old landfill. And the county is still servicing that landfill. Obviously, we would work with the appropriate agencies, get the appropriate authorizations to close that landfill and take that out of the county's purview. The other thing I want you to notice about this site is the amount of green space here. There is a very low proposed maximum FAR here of 0.08. So when Ms. Mills was talking about what the maximum square footage could be on this site with an LIP designation, that was significantly higher than what is being proposed on this site. The advantage of an LIP designation really lies in the P part of it. And the P part of it is planned development, which means anyone who wants to develop here has to submit a companion PD for zoning. So the board, the county, will retain control over what is developed on this site. In a worst case scenario, we always talk about worst case scenarios when we're talking about land use changes. If the motor enclave were to disappear.
We're sorry. Mr. Singer, I'm not sure if you're aware, but the 3 minutes ran out a few seconds ago. I don't know if you have another person presenting kind of at the start of that last slide, I'd say.
So we can go to the next.
Mr. Singer, can you hear us?
Yes.
Your time ran out. And so I don't know if you have another person from the applicant team presenting, or if you had.
We certainly present from here, but we concur with the Planning Commission's recommendation. We're available for questions, and happy to take them. We have all our experts ready for you.
Okay, each person from the applicant team is allowed 3 minutes. So I don't know if you have another person you might want to put on, or.
We do.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you. I'm Adam Carnegie with Stantec, 777 South Harbor Island Boulevard, planner for the applicant. Next slide, please. We just wanted to, next slide. We just wanted to emphasize that the plan, that the LIP designation and the implementing zoning plan are really excellent tools for achieving compatibility and plan consistency. And the Planning Commission became very aware of this and agreed wholeheartedly that the densities that would be allowed by the LIP designation were extremely low, the intensity by the FAR. One point to note is that water and sewer within this area, which is generally prohibited under the comprehensive plan, is going to be available at developer's cost, because this area was previously denied for an airport expansion. Commissioners, in 1994, denied a septic tank permit because of potential adverse impacts on the Tampa Bypass Canal. That then places this whole area squarely within what is called the health hazard exception in the comprehensive plan. And that's what policy 4.7 on screen deals with here. So we just wanted you to understand, in case you had questions about how public utilities would be brought in here, this is the one circumstance in which a rural service area can be served by public facilities, by public water and sewer, because it is necessary to do so to avoid a public health hazard. So that's just something I thought I would comment on to help you. But we would respectfully request that the board approve this plan amendment as has been recommended unanimously by the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know, you had 45 seconds left, and I don't know also if there's anyone else there. As I said, you have 3 minutes per speaker.
Well, since we do have 45 seconds, Commissioners, might I just add that the required site plan that you will see in the companion zoning really does a lot to establish compatibility. As you can see here, all of the major wetland systems are being retained. Those are shown in green here. And then there are some massive buffers that we'll cover in the zoning presentation, especially on the southern part of the property, which are, in my professional experience, almost unprecedented. But those will be very helpful to establish the compatibility that the Planning Commission understood and recognized in recommending that this be approved. Thank you.
Thank you. And is there anyone else from the applicant team at this point? And
as we stand ready to answer questions.
Okay, thank you. And maybe when we go into board discussion, we have, this is a public hearing, and so we are going to open it up and to the speakers that are signed up. Please caution to limit your testimony to this comprehensive plan amendment. The rezoning will be considered subsequently, and you'll have an opportunity at that time, correct, to speak to the rezoning. I'm checking with the attorney.
the persons who have signed up and qualified for oral argument will be able to speak to the rezoning. However, at this time, all who wish to speak regarding the comprehensive plan amendment will have the opportunity to speak.
So everyone can speak, even those not signed up, to speak to the comprehensive plan amendment. Thank you.
Even those not signed up to speak to the rezoning can speak
Okay.
to the comp plan amendment.
Mm-hmm. So this is a public hearing, and we will open it up to anyone who wishes to speak at this time. And I have oral argument for the rezoning, but I don't know if we have anyone there who would like to speak to this comprehensive plan amendment at this time.
There's no one in public, or in person, I'm sorry, but I believe we do have some people signed up virtually.
Okay, please, if you could, I don't think I have names here. As I said, I do have them
understand.
for the subsequent, but if you could just introduce.
I'll just go through our list.
Give us your name, and you have 3
Pamela
minutes each
Gomez.
to speak.
Is Pamela Gomez on the line? Okay, next up would be Christina Bosworth. And I don't believe Christina's on the line. Next up is Todd Pressman.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, sir.
Just in regard to the comp plan, raised some concerns about compatibility with the proposed use.
Excuse me, I'm having difficulty hearing.
Can you hear me now?
Much better. Can we start the clock? It's just 6 seconds, but go ahead.
Thank you. In regard just strictly to the comp plan, raised concerns about compatibility with the proposed use, which can be very loud and can create odors in terms of the use. That's a question of buffering, question of compatibility with residential surrounding the site. And there are uses on the site that do produce or can produce, again, noise and odor. So compatibility in that respect is a concern, and how it may impact residential surrounding in regard to buffering and distances.
Thank you. Do we have?
Finally, we have Arnold Stark. Arnold, you're muted. Go ahead,
I
sir.
got on mute, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, my name is Arnold Stark. I live at 6305 Eureka Springs Road. I hope you can give me an extra 30 seconds to get all my points across. I did not know I needed to separate comments from the plan versus rezoning. We agree with the planning staff in their initial comments on the incompatibility of this request with our beautiful Eureka Springs Park. We are fortunate to live across from the park, and almost every day we hear children laughing and playing there. Other than the occasional low drone from I-75 traffic and aircraft noise, our community is a quiet place. We compliment the staff for their interpretation and use of community plans, data, and looking at the depth of this proposal. At the time they were developed, my wife was president of the Greater Thanodisassa Civic Association and was on the community planning committees for both Thanodisassa and East Lake areas. We were also spokespersons for Eureka Springs. We encourage you to continue to use all these documents wisely. We love Eureka Springs Park and our rural lifestyle, and will be grateful to be left here to enjoy it. This project would make this difficult. Between us, we have asthma and COPD. When the air contains exhaust fumes or smog from running cars, we have difficulty breathing. It has been recognized that locations where gasoline and products used to clean and repair autos are used, liquid waste sometimes sinks into the ground. There is a chance this could result in contamination of the surrounding water table and aquifer. As described by the developer, there will be a number of events throughout the year where attendees may number in the hundreds or even thousands. Neither Eureka Springs Road nor Falkenberg Road can handle such traffic. A few years ago, there was an event at the airport which turned Eureka Springs Road into a parking lot. No one could get out of or into their homes for hours. Although the numbers of trips shown doesn't seem bad on paper, these additional trips will be a problem for the children and animals that play or feed near the roadside or on the road itself. Yes, kids shouldn't do that, and cars shouldn't be speeding either. If there's a back gate leading to Eureka Springs Road, we will surely see traffic using it. Therefore, should this incompatible zoning be approved, and since the main entrance is now on Falkenberg Road, the development's address should be changed to Falkenberg Road, and the access on Eureka Springs Road should be permanently removed. Alternatively, if possible, the developer should seek
Excuse
the
me,
right of way
Sir,
directly.
I'm sorry,
Yes?
sir, your time has run out.
And I can't have another 30 seconds?
No, I'm sorry, sir, we can't do that.
Okay.
But I thank you for your comments, and we'll as the hearing goes on, we'll see. We have applicant rebuttal at this time, unless there is anyone else at the public hearing that would like to speak. Is that all the speakers?
That is it, ma'am.
Okay. Then we have applicant rebuttal at this time, is allowed up to 3 minutes.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'll be brief. This is Dave, for the record, David Singer for the applicant. A couple things. One, we have, after engaging with the community, and there was significant community engagement, we have changed the entrance from Eureka Springs to Falkenberg. And we worked with Hillsborough County traffic, and there are conditions that you will see on the PD plan, but that was a big discussion item with the community. Part of the East Lake Orient Park community plan focuses very heavily on citizen input and citizen interaction. And we held many meetings, both in person and via Zoom. And the result of those meetings, as you can see from this slide, is an overwhelming amount of support from the neighbors who are adjacent to this site and who are directly south in that residential community. What you see in these white bubble outlines are people and property owners who either support this project or do not object to this project. So significant community engagement was undertaken, and the community is very aware of this plan. We will get into noise and traffic and preservation of wetlands when we get to zoning. But from a plan perspective, when you have a site that is between the airport and I-75 with a landfill on it, residential is not appropriate. Residential is not compatible. And so you look to what is a transitional use in terms of density between the airport and I-75 and that residential. And what you get here is a development with an extremely low FAR, and almost 100% preservation of wetland that you could not get even if you had 191 homes on this site. You could not get with a commercial development. You could not get if the airport were to expand. This is a very unique site that calls for a very unique development. We have one here. We presented that in full to the Planning Commission. We received unanimous support. We have neighborhood support. We have made the changes that the community has requested, and we would request that you find this plan consistent and issue your approval at the end of this hearing.
Thank you. And so with that, I assume the rebuttal's finished. So we will move on because this application is a kind of paired application. We'll move on to the oral argument at this time. Am I correct? For RZ 20-1148. Oral argument's been filed for this item, and I need a motion to open this for oral argument.
So moved. Second.
Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Cohen. Seeing no further discussion, please do a roll call vote.
Kemp,
Yes?
Cohen,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Hagan,
Yes.
Overman,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you. And at this time, I'll ask the clerk's office representative to administer the oath to all the persons, everyone who is intending to speak on RZ 20-1148.
I'm sorry, ma'am, could you repeat that?
I'm asking the clerk's office to administer the oath to everyone who is planning to speak on RZ 20-1148.
Yes, ma'am. All right, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right.
Thank you. Mr. Moreta, you're recognized.
Commissioners Israel Monsanto.
I'm sorry, we can't hear you. Mr. Moreta, we can't hear you.
Good evening, Commissioners. I want to introduce Mr. Israel Monsanto.
I'm sorry,
He's
Mr.
the
Moreta, we still can't hear you. Is there something we can do in the boardroom here? We're having difficulty hearing.
Go ahead, Mr. Moreta. Can you hear? Can we hear now?
Can you turn it up? It's better. Can you go up a little bit on volumes?
Is that better now?
I think I can make
Audio
it out.
test 1 2 1 2
Yes.
1.
Okay, that's better. So let's. You're recognized. Go ahead. You can proceed.
We can't. Are we good to go? Thank you, Commissioners. Mr. Israel Monsanto, who's the lead planner for the implementing zoning application, will make a brief orientation, present.
Good evening, Commissioners. Israel Monsanto Development Services. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So the rezoning for this site, which is the regulating plan that you see on your screen, will consist of 3 development parcels. Parcel A, which is this area over here, will consist or be limited to a multi-purpose building, 50,000 square feet, and a vehicle dynamic pad, which will allow the display and parking of vehicles. Development parcel B will consist of a 1.5 mile paved performance circuit and 350 storage units for vehicles. These units will be set back as proposed in the PD plan and also the conditions, and also the performance circuit will be set back at least 300 feet from the southern PD line. Then there's also the development parcel C, which will be limited to a off-road track and also a maintenance building in this area over here. There are proposed conditions for development standards for the garages. These garages will be only utilized for the storage of vehicles. Will be no permitted residential uses within these storage garages. Additionally, there are conditions proposed by EPC to limit any impact on the wetlands. Also, the wetland segments will be established at 30 feet as required per code. And additionally, the EPC or any noise will be regulated by county ordinance or EPC regulations. Also, lastly, Commissioners, there are a number of zoning conditions that will be critical design features, and those changes to those conditions will require a modification to the PD in accordance with the Land Development Code. There are also proposed conditions for transportation, for road improvements on Falkenberg, and also there will be transportation conditions that will regulate the number of vehicles for those special events that will be limited to the area in development parcel A. And we are available if you have any questions.
Thank you. And I guess someone else is keeping time on this because my timer is not going off.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I don't know what happened to the timer.
Okay. Well, at this time, we'll go on and, oops. I was going to turn my phone on, but it's not quite doing it. So at this time, we'll move to the applicant oral argument. I felt certain we were under time for 10 minutes.
Commissioner David Singer for the applicant. Commissioner Kemp, how much time will I have for oral argument?
10 minutes.
Okay. Start the first slide. If you could hold the clock while we put up the appropriate presentation.
Sure.
Thanks. Okay. Commissioners, as you heard, Development Services staff found this PD plan consistent, recommended approval. The zoning hearing master at our hearing in front of the zoning hearing master found the project recommended approval, added no additional conditions. Importantly, the approval from the ZHM noted substantial competent evidence demonstrating consistency both with comp plan and compliance with the land development code. Next slide. As you look at the site plan, as you heard, there are three different phases here, A, B, and C. A, where the multi-purpose building will be, B, the performance circuit and the garages, C, the off-road. I want to focus on parcel B and remind the commissioners, again, head-to-head racing is prohibited. No residential uses will be here. But one of the things that we spoke about at the transmittal hearing that was a concern was lighting and track operation interfering with the enjoyment of the parcels to the south. One of the conditions is there may be no track activity after sundown, and there are no lights on this track. So this will be a daytime activity on the track. What I had started to talk about was the preservation of natural resources on the site. That is a condition in this PD, condition 9.6, and it is extensive. And as you see here on this slide, all of the green areas are going to be and are protected wetlands. We designed this development, the track, the garages, the off-road experience, the dynamics pad, with this purpose in mind, to protect as much environmental issues as we possibly could. And we were successful in that only a very, very, very small percentage of wetlands on this site will be impacted. And you'll see that EPC has indicated that they will work with us on that. There are a couple other issues I want to address, and I will try to do so quickly, and we can come back to it in the questions if you so choose. Noise, traffic, wetlands compatibility, and you heard about the community engagement. So let's talk noise briefly. Again, daytime hours only, no head-to-head racing. The design of the buildings along that southern edge, if you recall, the garages are on that southern edge almost exclusively, and they're actually 27 feet tall. That's important because FDOT noise barriers are actually only 22 feet tall. Those buildings themselves will provide a noise barrier from anything that is happening on that track. The setbacks and the buffers are in excess of the LDC requirements. There is a retention here of over 200 trees along the southern border. And a 100-foot wide landscape buffer, 135-foot building setback. All of this will provide a natural barrier for noise as well. This is thick vegetation. These are pictures from the site itself. And so in addition to having to cross the buildings, noise would have to get through this thick vegetation as well. And of course, this project would be subject to the noise ordinance of Hillsborough County. We discussed briefly when it comes to traffic that the access primarily will be via Falkenberg Road. That is moved from Eureka Springs Road. The applicant has agreed to widen Falkenberg to the county engineer standard. There's going to be an eastbound to northbound left turn lane on Sly. Again, the frequency and size of events are limited by the conditions in that site plan. Move to the wetlands. Again, we've completed the formal on-site jurisdictional delineation. The total impacts on this 191 acre site total less than 1 acre. And again, close coordination with the EPC and the development services staff on these preservation conditions. I'm going to move past compatibility because we discussed that, but I want to highlight again the uniqueness of this site and the PD plan that was meticulously put in place to really fit an unusual site with unusual characteristics between 75, between the airport, with a landfill on the northern half, an extremely low FAR of 0.08 that can't be changed by any future developer unless you approve it, the extensive buffering and screening. With the community engagement, again, this slide you have seen from rebuttal on the last hearing. There's been significant community engagement. And again, I want to highlight the community plan and the consistency with the community plan. Once you agree that residential is not appropriate for this site, with the health hazards posed by the landfill, with the problems of locating residential next to an airport, and the airport has agreed that they do not want residential next to it. You have to ask what can go on this site and what is reasonable. And this very low density development is actually the perfect site plan to occupy this site. The community was engaged. The neighborhood plan states residents are able to choose what type of intensity of development is most suitable. They were given all of the information and they responded accordingly, either in support or without objection. Here, this is a little bit of a wider view of the slide you just saw in terms of the location of supporters. Again, if you see our site outlined in blue towards the left, and of course, as with any development, as you and I know, there are some folks who are not going to support an applicant. Interestingly, on this application, the folks who were vocal about not supporting were uniformly more than 3.5 miles away from this site. Fears about noise, fears about odors. It would be very difficult to travel 3.5 miles away. And we'd ask that you give weight to the folks that directly abut the site and that have been and are continuously engaged in what the applicant is proposing on this site. To wrap up, this development services staff report, in addition to finding compatibility with the area and recommending approval of the PD, had some very coherent and relevant language. Natural screening, mitigating the impacts to neighboring properties and maintaining the natural scape of the area. Again, we're talking about a transition of uses from the airport and I-75 to residential with a low density development. The location of the buildings and other improvements designed to avoid the impacts to the wetlands. The setbacks comparable and frankly exceeding the requirements of the LDC. The applicant approach to buffering and screening, providing a more effective and aesthetically superior project screening, and all of the conditions that are attached to this PD really the applicant and county staff have worked hand in hand over the last 18 months to provide this final site plan that we believe answers the needs of the community, the needs of the code, and will be a great benefit to Hillsborough County. We will remind you that the ZHM recommended approval after a full and thorough hearing earlier this month. The one kind of hanging on issue that I would like to bring up and that we have to address is about neighborhood serving commercial use and the locational criteria waiver. The ZHM found that this is not neighborhood serving commercial use. We do not believe that a locational criteria waiver is required here. Out of an abundance of caution, we included that in the application, but we ask that in your finding, you actually reverse the staff recommendation for a denial of the locational criteria waiver and instead find that it is not needed. And there's ample material in your backup materials to support that. The project team is here to answer your questions. We respectfully ask that you approve both the future land use amendment and the PD, and we look forward to speaking with you the rest of the evening.
Thank you. You will have an opportunity for rebuttal of 5 minutes. At this time, we'll move to oral argument. This will be limited to the parties of record who have filed, and we'll start with proponent testimony up to 10 minutes. Proponent testimony? Do we have any? No, we have none. Okay, so at this time, opponent testimony, and you have 10 minutes for opponent testimony. I see two people here together.
Madam Chair, it looks like our attorney's trying to get your attention.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I just wanted to make sure you had the list with the names.
Yes, I have, and so, but I am assuming that the two in opposition, is that what you're referring to? Yes, I was just going to say, with Ms. McComas and Mr. Pressman, so together you have 10 minutes.
I believe Mr. Pressman is still on the line.
Madam Chairman,
Yes?
might I be allowed to continue my remarks under the zoning part?
I
Yes,
believe
is this
this
Ms.
is Arnold
McComas?
Stark, Chairman.
No?
I
Oh, I'm
believe
Yes,
sorry.
it's Arnold Stark.
I don't think I heard, excuse me, I'm sorry. No. Is that Mr. Stark? No, you won't
Yes.
be, you can't do that. You're not a party of record. I'm so sorry. So we have to have, it is only, this time, the only party of records who signed up in opposition are Ms. McComas and Mr. Pressman. Are either of them there?
Mr. Pressman was on the line. I believe he is no longer on the line. I'm not seeing his name anymore.
Okay, that's Mr. Pressman. And how about Ms. McComas?
There's no one in person, and I haven't seen Ms. McComas on the line.
Okay, I guess at this time I don't,
We do, I think county staff has comment in person.
Good evening, Israel Monsanto Development Services. Commissioners, I just want to point out a correction that we need to do on one of the conditions, transportation conditions, and that's condition 22. The condition reads today, developer shall construct an eastbound to southbound left turn lane on Sly Avenue onto Falkenburg Road. The condition needs to be corrected to say eastbound to northbound left turn. And this is correct in the body of the report, but it was just incorrectly translated into the conditions. I just wanted to put on the record.
thank you. Thank you for that correction. And I'll go back now to opposition testimony. Do we have either of the two parties that signed up, Mrs. McComas or Mr. Pressman, at this time?
I don't believe so.
Madam Chairman, it's Arnold Stark again. I was not informed that I needed to separate my comments.
I'm sorry, but you're not signed up. I'm so sorry. I know this is a complicated and process with these rezonings. We've been trying to deal with this, and people don't understand it, but you're not signed up to make comments at this time. You'd have to be signed up for oral argument. It's a difficult, cumbersome, and hard to understand process that many people have had difficulty with, but you're not on the list, and so we can't have you make any further comments. I'm very sorry. And again, I'm going to go back. Neither of those parties are present or available, so I would imagine that our advice would be just to move on then to the applicant, the opportunity for applicant rebuttal. I don't know if the applicant has any more to say at this point.
Commissioners, I think the lack of opposition here from the community is important to note, and we are happy to answer your questions.
Thank you. Okay, and the Planning Commission staff, I see, will provide a report on compliance or non-compliance with the comprehensive plan.
Sure. Unique Mills, Planning Commission staff. The applicant is requesting to rezone a 191-acre parcel to a planned development to allow automobile enthusiast community. The intent is for a private members-only community that will permit auto enthusiast-related storage, general indoor-outdoor recreation, owner garage units, and accessory recreation amenities. The surrounding land use pattern includes a mixture of uses. Tampa Executive Airport, located to the west, Interstate 75 to the east. Immediately adjacent to the subject site to the south are agricultural, vacant properties, and single-family residential uses. Planning Commission staff recognizes that the proposed use would be a complementary use to Tampa Executive Airport, though due to the existing single-family residential uses being adjacent to the south, it would create some compatibility concerns. Planning Commission staff have determined that the proposed use would not provide for a transition in intensity between uses, would not provide creation of complementary uses, would not fully mitigate adverse impacts. However, the applicant has made a true attempt through the use of professional site planning and buffering and screening to mitigate impacts to the residential in the area. Even with the buffering and screening in place, given the proximity of the residential uses to the south, it will be extremely difficult to properly mitigate impacts such as noise. The EPC Air Division expressed concerns regarding the noise that may be associated with the proposed use and asked that conditions be put in place for mitigation purposes. When requesting non-residential uses, developments are to meet commercial locational criteria or request a waiver to said criteria. The site is not located within qualifying intersections to meet commercial locational criteria. The applicant has provided a locational criteria waiver. The waiver states that the proposed site meets the intent of commercial locational criteria by avoiding strict commercial development, and that compatibility is being ensured through the use of the general site plan. Future Land Use Element Policy 22.7 states that locational criteria are not the only factors to be considered for the approval of neighborhood commercial or office uses in a proposed activity center. Considerations involving land use compatibility, adequacy and availability of public services, environmental impacts, adopted service levels of effective roadways, and other policies of the comprehensive plan and zoning regulations would carry more weight than locational criteria. With the proposed uses incompatibility with the surrounding area, Planning Commission staff has determined that the proposed use would be too intense and not complementary to the surrounding development pattern in the immediate area, and would disrupt the gradual transitions to the single-family lots located immediately to the south. Planning Commission staff recommends that the Hillsborough County Commissioners not approve the commercial locational criteria waiver. Pod A is proposed to be developed with a 50,000 square foot corporate event center. The event center will provide for catering of events, car storage, and associated 1,000 square foot retail space. The corporate event center may be used by garage owners or by the general public for special events. Allowing this use to be open to the public increases the volume of traffic and activity traveling along Falkenberg Road, which is a local residential roadway. This is inconsistent with policy 16.5, which requires that development of higher intensity non-residential land uses that are adjacent to established neighborhoods to be restricted to collectors or arterials. The proposed commercial use will not be appropriate at this location due to its proximity to residential uses. It will not facilitate development as well as undermines the intent of Objective 4 of the future land use element. The rural area is to be provided for long-term agricultural uses. Planning Commission staff recognizes that the applicant has made a true attempt at mitigation. However, mitigation measures would likely not be able to achieve the degree of compatibility needed for their adjacent residential uses. As well, the request undermines the intent of the East Lake Orient Park Community Plan, which envisions that new development should not adversely impact existing neighborhoods. And based on those considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development inconsistent with the future Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll move now to the zoning hearing master's recommendation.
The zoning hearing master considered the applicant's request to rezone approximately 191 acres from agricultural rural to planned development to allow development of the site with an automobile-oriented recreational project. The zoning hearing master considered the Planning Commission recommendation regarding the future land use map amendment. The Planning Commission board unanimously found the future land use map amendment to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. The zoning hearing master stated that the rezoning would be subject to the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners adopting CPA 2016 to amend the subject property's future land use designation to LIP, Light Industrial Plant. The zoning hearing master noted that the applicant has requested variations to the parking requirements of the LDC as well as buffering and screening requirements. The zoning hearing master found that the applicant's justifications and mitigation approaches meet the criteria of the Land Development Code for the approval of these variations. Planning Commission staff determined that the proposed project would be too intense and not complementary to the surrounding development pattern of the immediate area and would disrupt the gradual transition of the single-family lots located immediately to the south of the site. Planning Commission staff further found the subject site is not located within a qualifying intersection and does not meet the commercial locational criteria. The applicant has requested a waiver of the commercial locational criteria and submitted justifications to support the waiver. Planning Commission staff does recommend that the board not approve the commercial locational criteria waiver. Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Element Policy 22.8 does provide the board the ability to grant a waiver to the intersection criteria for the location of commercial uses based on the compatibility of the use with the surrounding area. Unique circumstances and specific findings should be identified to support granting a waiver, and the board may reverse or affirm the Planning Commission staff's recommendation through its rezoning review. The Planning Commission has found, the Planning Commission body or board has found the applicant's future land use map amendment, CPA 2016, consistent with the comprehensive plan. The Board of County Commissioners will make the final decision on the requested future land use map amendment. The zoning hearing master concluded that, subject to the Board of County Commissioners approving future land use map amendment CPA 2016, designating the subject property to light industrial planned future land use, this recommendation is for approval of the plan development rezoning request, subject to the conditions of approval set out in the Development Services staff report.
Thank you. You're concluded. Thank you. And with that, we'll move on to board discussion, motion. What's your pleasure? I see Commissioner Smith, you are recognized.
Thank you. If I could, let me ask the county attorney about the process here. We didn't have board discussion on the comp plan amendment. are we at this point allowed to discuss both and pull materials from both the comp plan amendment and the rezoning?
Yes, Commissioners, these items are presented in a related fashion. The board can hold the discussion and consider and ask questions about both items at this time. Then I'll ask the board to take a motion and vote on the ordinance for the adoption of the CPA, of the comp plan amendment, and then follow that by a vote on the rezoning.
And we can draw from the materials of both cases in our remarks.
Yes.
Thank you. If I could ask staff to put up, I think one of the best aerials is on page 58 of the comp plan amendment backup. There's an aerial there. I'm trying to get at an aerial that shows the streets, and I think that's the best one that I've found.
HTV, can you place my PowerPoint back up? Not that one.
That's good. That's okay. I'd like to ask, no, well, part of the problem, I keep asking for us to have maps that show the whole context, as well as the zoomed in maps that just show the site. And so it's hard to get at that. But this would be good enough. Well, not really. In the backup for the comp plan amendment, do you have that available? The backup that we got for the comp plan amendment.
I don't believe HTV has that. I'm not sure if county staff has that.
Let me see if I can get to there.
Yeah, because there's a photo there I'd like to see as well. I wish I was there. I could put it on the Elmo.
Madam Chair, I have a suggestion.
Yes.
Mr. Gormley, did you find it on your tablet device? Is the Elmo still in the room? I don't know if it's over with the COVID protocols. Is it still here? I was just going to suggest that maybe we could put your tablet on the overhead now.
All right. I was looking for page 58 of that backup.
I actually don't see the Elmo in the room, Madam Chair. It may have been taken out because of the COVID protocol.
Right.
Yeah, I believe it's at Saunders Library.
All right. If you would just give me the best aerial you've got about the streets and showing the interstate. Oh, that's not going to work with all those little boxes on top of it.
Commissioner Smith, are you speaking of the page 86 of the backup, of the PDF backup, or?
Yeah, 58 of the PDF. All right, let's just start here. I'm sorry, and I apologize for spending that time, board members. Let's just start here, and if somebody could, you can see I-75, you can see the bypass canal. if somebody could explain to us how one gets to this site from, say, the interstate.
And
staff, maybe.
I'm just wondering if there's staff available who can explain this.
Commissioner, this is Monsanto. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Barely.
Yes, I will use this map because this one would show how to get to the site if you are coming from either I-4 or I-75.
Okay.
So you will be traveling, if you're traveling west on I-4, you will take this exit right here. I'm trying to do my best because I have it on the wrong direction, but there is an exit on 301 that will take you here, and then you will go north on 301. There will be a right turn. You will then go across the canal on slide until you get to Falkenberg right here, and then go north.
Okay.
If you're coming from I-75, it will be the same, just that you will exit to the I-4.
Okay. And this little piece of Falkenberg Road, I just want to make sure that everybody understands that's not the Falkenberg Road and the Sly Avenue that you think of as normal streets out this way. In this area, these are just pitiful little bits of pavement that just happen to be named after their bigger counterparts on the other side of the interstate. This little bit of Falkenberg Road here, and Mr. Monsanto, could you point that out again? The little bit of Falkenberg Road, yes, that's all there is. It doesn't connect across the interstate to the Falkenberg Road that you might be familiar with down by Highway 60 or anything. And in your backup, commissioners, of the comp plan amendment, on page 32 of that backup, there are some photos of Falkenberg Road there. And if you had access to those, you could see that Falkenberg Road in this little bit of pavement that happens to be named Falkenberg Road is just a little bit of asphalt that is not even 20 feet wide, 17 foot, 18 foot wide, not a stripe down the middle of it. The edges are crumbling, and there's certainly no shoulders or and definitely no bike lanes or sidewalks or curbs or anything. It all is just crumbling at the edges of a very narrow bit of pavement. This piece of Sly Road in here that Israel Monsanto indicated goes across the interstate. In our backup, it mentioned that there are bike lanes on Sly Road on the other side of Maple Drive. Can you show Maple Drive? Here it's kind of blocked up, but Maple Drive is on the other side of the bypass canal. So yeah, that's Maple Drive. So over there, when you connect to the real Sly Avenue, or you would maybe encounter some bike lanes. But in this little area, Sly and Eureka Road are very substandard roads. Eureka Springs Road has not only no shoulders, the road really it has very steep sides going into the drainage ditches on either side. And so, I'm concerned to understand about the traffic impacts on these roads, given the design exceptions that are granted, and wonder if we're giving away too much here. So on the comp plan amendment backup provided by the Planning Commission, they indicate that there could be as many as 20,850 trips per day on these local roads in scenario 1. Under scenario 2, it's much, much less, 2,600 trips per day. So I'd like to ask the Planning Commission staff to explain what can we really expect here. You've got two scenarios, one with 20,000 trips per day, one with 2,600 trips per day. What should we expect to occur on the little bit of pavement that is called Falkenberg Road over here?
Commissioner, again, this is Unica Mills. That information is in our backup, but I believe the information you're referring to is provided to us through the transportation staff for Hillsborough County. I would probably refer to them to comment on what the transportation impacts might be.
Okay, I'd just like to know, is it 20,000? Is it 2,600 trips per day on that little piece of road?
Commissioner, if I may, Tony Garcia, Planning Commission staff, I think part of that is based on, you have a worst case scenario, of course, just like when we do a maximum on the FAR, we give you a maximum potential. So there's a maximum potential for your trips in addition to what's being proposed by the applicants. So you have the realistic one that's being proposed, which is closer to the 2,600 trips versus the other one, which is based on a maximum potential worst case scenario. So that's why there's varying degrees.
And do we have anyone from transportation staff here?
Commissioner, not for the plan amendment, but Development Services staff did the analysis for the proposed rezoning, and I believe that the trip generation that was shown, okay, I'm getting a message, 20,000 is based on the worst case. And looking at the backup that was provided for the zoning, there are two scenarios. One is with the small event traffic, and that would have a 24-hour two-way volume of 844 trips. The 2,944 number that's in the zoning backup is based on the limited number large events that would be allowed by the zoning, which are limited to a maximum of 2 per month. So I believe the number, if the number provided in the comp plan amendment is in the same neighborhood, the 2,944 trips is based on the proposed zoning, and that's the maximum number with the limited large events as opposed to the small events, and that daily trip number would be 844. Okay.
So then that brings me to the design exceptions. And they are in the rezoning backup, page 12. I understood the applicant, and then they're also in the conditions on page 24. I understood the applicant to say they would be required to widen Falkenberg to county standards. but that's not what I'm seeing in the design exceptions. Can you explain what the developer will be required to do with Falkenberg Road?
Yes, ma'am.
Was that a question to the applicant or was that a question to staff?
Staff, please. Staff, please.
Commissioner, the recommended design exception would have the pavement widened to a minimum of 2 10-foot travel lanes. It would provide a additional 6 inches of road base on each side of the road and provide 6-foot wide shoulders with 1 foot minimum paved, and regrade the road as necessary to provide for positive drainage. In addition, there's a requirement for core sampling of Falkenberg Road to be done to determine the existing asphalt conditions, and if they are not sufficient to support the traffic, then they'll be required to improve the actual road base itself as well.
And so, but that's not county standards for that amount of traffic in this kind of a neighborhood?
Yes, Commissioner, this is a, Falkenberg in this location, as you noted, is a local road. So there are some, there are design standards, and those are the ones that are noted, which I just read. So that's correct, that those are not county standards. That's why the applicant requested a design exception, which is being supported with the improvements that I just listed.
But no sidewalks or bike lanes in this neighborhood where there will be presumably race cars coming back and forth to these big events and to the garages and the facilities there. Correct? No bike lanes or sidewalks?
That's correct.
And the mobility fees, I see that they're paying are about $9,500. So once this development is approved with these design exceptions, Falkenberg will remain a very narrow road through this neighborhood with no bike lanes or sidewalks. And will be on the county will have gotten $9,500, which won't help us improve these roads to county standards. So whatever we approve today is what we're going to get there. Is that correct, Adam?
Yes, I'm trying to confirm the mobility fee.
It's on page 13 of the backup. I'm adding them together for the office and warehouse mobility fees to get $9,500. Might be one or the other.
Yeah, that mobility fee number is per 1,000 square feet.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, commissioners, I don't like the design exception. So I'll ask the applicant if they would be amenable to improving the roads to a better standard through this neighborhood.
This is David Singer for the applicant. Let me clear up a couple of things. In the presentation, I'm sorry if you heard county standards, it was to the county engineer's standards. Our traffic engineer worked with the county engineer to come up with the standard for the improvements to Falkenberg. Unfortunately, and I will ask Mr. Razor, our traffic consultant, to give you a little more data here, there's simply not enough right-of-way on Falkenberg to widen it to 10 feet and include bike lanes and sidewalks. It doesn't exist. It wouldn't exist for this applicant. It wouldn't exist for any applicant. moving forward. But I would turn it to Mr. Razor to give you an explanation as to the improvements of what's going to happen on Falkenberg and why the county engineer and he came to the agreement that they did.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, Alan.
Yes, yours.
Great. Good evening, commissioners. The improvements, as Adam had indicated, are in fact what we came to an agreement with the county engineer on. Specifically, I'll go through them again in a slow fashion. 20 feet of pavement width of lanes, 10 feet in each direction, with an additional 1 foot paved on each side of the road, and then 5 feet of stabilized shoulder adjacent to that. That puts us at 32 feet in width, plus the transitions to get down to the slopes and the existing swales that are there are fairly steep, but we're going to regrade those so they are 4-to-1 or flatter, which does meet FDOT and AASHTO criteria. The issue is that once you get to that point, we run out of right-of-way, we run into wetland impacts, and there's really no additional distance or width available to implement sidewalks, bike lanes, and the sort. So as David had mentioned, we are had an issue with available space within the cross section. However, by widening to the 20 feet plus 1 foot on each side, we anticipate that it's a significant improvement over existing conditions, and anticipate that will handle all the vehicular traffic without issue. And as far as pedestrians, this is not a pedestrian-oriented type of development. The folks that would walk or bike, I mean, there's really not a whole lot of rooftops in that general area. So that played into the determination of foregoing formal pedestrian amenities along that corridor.
Thank you. One last question, if I may, Madam Chair.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Very quickly, the wetlands that were shown on the map is green conservation areas. Are you going to dedicate and this is a question for the applicant, I guess, are you going to dedicate a conservation easement to EPC over those green conservation areas?
Hello, Commissioner Adam Carnegie, may I answer that?
Sure.
Yes. At this point, there has been no discussion of the dedication of a conservation easement across those wetlands. But what there has been, typically one would delineate those wetlands, and then depending on EPC and SwiftMud permitting, you could have impacts on those wetlands and so on. What we're doing in this zoning, which is unusual, which is a substitute for a conservation easement and an effective one, is to spell them out on the PD plan as being conserved, okay? So that the impacts to those wetlands that are not allowed by the agencies to the extent that we may need to impact a tiny bit in order to make the track safe or to overall achieve the EPC's objectives, the PD would prevent, the PD itself, not a conservation easement, but the PD itself would preclude the impact of those wetlands. So you're still getting the protection at the zoning level that you would otherwise get from a conservation easement. I mean, as you know, Commissioner, with a conservation easement, there would have to be the transfer of the easement to a steward, okay? So what we're saying here is without having to designate a steward, without having to find a grantee for the easement, we're able to preserve it, have it still be retained within our ownership, and achieve what you are trying to accomplish.
Thank you, I understand. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you. I also see Commissioner Overman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentations. They've been very helpful in understanding how this thing is going to work. But I do have just a couple of clarity points that I'd like to ask that pertain to both the comprehensive plan as well as the actual zoning. I think given where this land is positioned, and for one who lives near an interstate, the use of this particular land for this purpose would seem to be a reasonable use under the circumstances. Maybe not for the folks that live south of that particular property, but those that live that have historically used it as a park. It's not, unfortunately, it's not a park. It's a land use in many ways, or landfill. But that being said, it does appear as though where the buildings are located to the south of the property, that would create some sound protection to that community, maybe even more than what they currently are experiencing from the interstate, not from the airport, but from the interstate at the current moment. My question really, as it pertains to that, is given the use of the property as a car-centric car storage, but show and drive around event, I did not count the number of car storage usage. In other words, for the garages that are there where the participants are able to actually store their vehicles there, how many vehicles could possibly be stored at that site? And for example, if everybody came to work on their car on the same day, that's not related to an event, what is the total number of cars that could actually, occupy the space without an event specifically, for example? So how many spaces are you providing for at this point in the planning for the cars to be stored there? I couldn't find that information.
May I respond, Commissioner?
Yes, you're recognized. Mr. Roberts?
Yes, Adam Carnegie again for applicant. The PD limits the number of private garages to a maximum of 350 units. These will vary in size depending on the purchaser's desires. But the number of vehicles stored within each unit will vary depending on the unit size. If you were to assume 2 vehicles stored per unit, they could have 750 cars there, but that is no reflection of how many cars would be coming and going. The important thing is that we have learned by looking at a similar facility in Michigan that this functions very much like a marina. In fact, the traffic, everyone agrees, if there's one thing everybody agrees on, is that the best analog to determine the amount of trip generation is to look at a private marina where people occasionally come and use their boats. Such is the case here, Commissioner. So one would have much less average daily traffic here than if this were to be developed for 140 to 190 units, which is what the current Res 1 designation allows consideration of. It's because of that de-intensification of traffic that this project would provide for, why the Falkenberg Road improvements, for example, are able to handle the traffic because these same improvements would be sufficient for residential uses, and they're going to be sufficient for, they'll be more than sufficient for handling the traffic. I might also point out while you're looking at it, Commissioner, that on the east side of Falkenberg Road, there are no units residential units or other uses that will ever be developed there because that property between Falkenberg Road and I-75 is subject to a permanent conservation easement. So there will never be anyone there sitting watching a single car going by, much less the low number of trips that were projected.
Okay, thank you very much. And then to follow up on that, in the backup on page 25 of the plan amendment document, so like which document were you looking at? There was a maximum number of, in a large event, of approximately 1,310 vehicles. where are you going to park 1,300 vehicles on a large event on this property? Because I don't see where, I don't see parking spaces for 1,300 vehicles.
Yes, that's an excellent question. In fact, the 1310 vehicles comes from a calculation of of the parking that would set the limit for the number of vehicles that could attend such an event. The vehicle dynamics pad is an area, paved area, which for the largest event will not be used for other purposes. Instead, vehicles would come into the site and be directed and would be directed to park there. The other thing for 1,310 vehicle event, Commissioner, is that the track itself would be closed down. None of the owners will be driving cars during those very special events. So that, for example, the way we calculated the parking, the 1310, with the county engineer's review and approval, was to assume shutdown of the track. The track is essentially more than wide enough to have 3 travel lanes. And if you would imagine the 2 outer travel lanes being shut down, the center lane being used for cars to drive out of and into that continuous parking queue along that circuitous area, that will accommodate more than 1,310 vehicles, but we capped it at 1,310 vehicles. The beauty about this site is that you have malls that have all this pavement and rarely use it. For a special event of that magnitude, which would be very rare, the track would be shut down, as would the vehicle dynamics area. Does that help?
Yes, it does. What I guess I'm leading to, though, is, I can appreciate that you have that much parking space on the track. But are you is there any provisions for preventing vehicles being parked in the wetland conservation areas?
Oh, yes, very much so. Well, first of all, the track has a continuous guardrail around it, okay? So it's impossible for vehicles that are, say, driving on the track to just go off and park in the conservation area. Secondly, as you know and is shown on the site plan, there is a 30-foot natural resources buffer around each such wetland, and the guardrails stay outside of those. There may be a couple areas where we will seek special permission later in the review process, because that's essential for purposes of track safety, and there's no way around it. But there is there's also a number of areas which you see kind of shaded on the site plan. If we can show the site plan, is that up right now? Okay. There are the areas that are cross-hatched. Those are vehicle runoff areas, which they're actually, in most cases, grassed, because cars can run off there for safety purposes. Even those areas won't be used for parking. And so, and much of these kinds of restrictions are very much part of the operational DNA of this facility. Not only do the guardrails prevent people from getting to the wetland areas that you are concerned about, but if there's some critical need to stop a vehicle from ever getting there, I'm sure we can accommodate that an EPC can help us figure that out in the development review process as we get into minutia.
Okay, so the only other question I have pertains to the community use, or the community, I've forgotten exactly what the term is, but whether it's compatible with creating a community asset and or jobs or community resource. Typically, how many employees on a smaller non-event period would actually be working here or have an opportunity to work with folks that utilize the auto park?
May I introduce Mr. Olshansky? He is the developer and the owner and has operated these facilities before. He can give you more information.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. So to answer the question about staffing and community benefit, what we haven't talked about this hearing is that this is a replication of the exact project, a similar project I built in Michigan, which is very successfully operating currently after being in business for about 5 years. And we're in the middle of a much more dense neighborhood in Pontiac, Michigan. But in terms of staffing levels, we have a very small full-time staff. We will hire predominantly locally from the area, about 15 people full-time, everything from operations and marketing and typical, sales and work, landscaping, et cetera. We also have it'll mirror what we have in Michigan, which is a very large event-based and freelance staff of subcontractors for our events, which could, if we do one of the examples of a big event, which is not going to have very often, is the Partisan Coffee. That's why we can park on the track. That's why people can come to see cars for a couple hours, once a month, or it wouldn't even be that often. We're limited with all the restrictions we have put in place and conditions in terms of the number of vehicles, limited to the site. But that's an example of an event. In that event, we would have, say, 30 freelancers, all from the local community that would be paid to help with traffic flow, traffic control. And in the multi-purpose building, most of those events, we've categorized in your materials, different sizes of events. Most of those events are smaller group meetings. These are, corporate meetings, business offsites, community meetings, charity events, even police and fire training, and municipalities use our facility in Michigan. It would be the same thing here. And we would have staff to support those events, whether it's catering staff or, just people directing traffic, to park people. So, there's I would say full-time is a limited team, but for all these different events of different sizes, and again, most of them are very small, it could be, 4 to 5 people at an event, upwards of 30 to 40 freelancers for one of these large events like Cars and Coffee. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. And our last question has to do with the concern that we heard from Mr. Stark earlier. Given that the road has been, or the project has been redesigned in order to have a Falkenberg address as opposed to the property's address, can anyone tell me how hard it would be to actually change the address of this particular property to accommodate proper location finding to avoid and to protect the surrounding community?
Mr. Gormley?
Commissioner, it would not be difficult at all to change the address of this property, particularly if it is going to be accessed actually off Falkenberg Road. That would be the address that we would want to have for the property to ensure that the 911 system appropriately identifies the location of the property. It would not be difficult to change that.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you. And I see no other hands up. Do I have a motion? Commissioner White?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It was me that championed this concept of hearing these comp plan amendments and rezonings heard side by side so that the community's concerns can be addressed and everyone can have peace of mind. What I see here is a comprehensive plan amendment that will always have context attached to it, the context of how it was approved as a part of this companion rezoning. At the same time, I see a PD that has very strong safeguards in place for the community. With respect to Sly and Falkenberg, I basically see those roads as just being used to access the property. I do hear and recognize the concerns about the address change. Mr. Gormley, can that be incorporated in a motion just to have that as part of staff's administrative review as this moves through the process?
Yes, certainly. And we'll
Okay.
ensure that that is accomplished.
Okay, and Ms. Lundgren, you want motions one at a time, or can there be a motion to approve both?
They need to be taken up separately because one is an ordinance to approve the comprehensive plan amendment, and then that needs to be followed by the approval of the rezoning in a separate vote.
Okay, and the locational criteria waiver issue is attached to the comp plan amendment?
That will be incorporated and attached into the rezoning. If the rezoning is approved, that would become approved.
Oh, okay. At this time, I'll move approval of the comprehensive plan amendment.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Overman, and I don't believe there's any other discussion at this time. Can you please call the roll?
Kemp,
Yes?
Cohen,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Hagan,
Yes.
Overman,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you. And so now we will go to the rezoning. Is there a motion? I see Commissioner White on rezoning 20-1148.
Yes, Madam Chair. I move approval of the rezoning to grant the waiver of locational criteria and to direct staff to incorporate that address change issue into the administrative review portion of this.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
I'm sorry, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second by Commissioner Overman and motion by Commissioner White. Seeing no further discussion, can we please have a roll call vote?
Kemp,
Yes?
Cohen,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Hagan,
Yes.
Overman,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you, and that concludes our agenda, so we are adjourned.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Was there a vote for the consideration of the ordinance?
I'm sorry,
That already took place. That was the first item that the board voted on.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
That-
All right, thank you.
thank you. Okay, thank you, and we are adjourned.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Bye.